Hello guys, my name is Glurmit and today I'm going to go over some things you can do to improve your mods. Now, I know there are a lot of you out there who don't have the best mods, and I am one of these people. Like, if I show you guys the bottom of my roster, and we go to like a relic character, or even just a honorable soldier for example, you're going to see that I don't really have the greatest of mods, right? That's one of my worst modded characters. Just to show you guys some of the mods on my account. So for example, my hero Finn is 352, and my Mara Jade is 351, and then my Echo is 348. Now remember guys, whenever I do roster reviews, those of you that watch those will know one thing I always say is make sure that there's not too much disparity between the levels of your speeds on the characters. What I mean by this is, say we look at Hero Finn, we see that he's 352, and then when we look at Jedi Knight Revan, about 5 differences where I would look, we can see that he is 331. Now that may seem like a big bump, but obviously you need to take into consideration the actual speed it is. And what I mean by this is the speed increase, the added speed from the mods. We can see this is 169, and when we look at Revan, we can also see that it's very, very similar, right? Revan is at 163. So we're not necessarily looking at the actual speed of the character, although that is important. We're actually looking at the added speed from mods. And what you don't want to happen is for Finn to be like plus 163 and then Revan to be plus 110, because then the gap is too big. So one of the first things I'd say, guys, if you're trying to fix your mods, is go through and first make sure everyone is at least within touching distance of each other. You don't want someone at 350 and then someone at 280. You want them all to be gradually declining so that you go from 350 to 340, for example. This way your roster's not top heavy in terms of speed mods, and it's more balanced. And trust me guys, whilst you may benefit from a 340 Darth Revan, if the rest of your characters, rest of your team suffer because of that, the end results are going to be bad. Whereas if you go for 320 Revan, if this is your max, if this is your cap, and then the other characters around that level are also 320, 310, you're going to benefit a lot more in Grand Arena, a lot more in Territory War, because your teams are going to be more balanced, your rosters are going to be more balanced with the mods. Now obviously there are some exceptions. So for example, if you're using Jedi Knight Luke to counter SLKR, you guys are going to know that old Ben has to be ridiculously fast to beat those extremely fast Kylos, who, as we can see, this is 140 speed. So there are some exceptions where the character has to be this exact speed and can't be any lower and shouldn't really be any higher. But for the most part, you want to have a balanced roster in the sense that you want your roster and your mods to decline gradually. So now we've kind of covered the first thing you can do to fix your mods. Now we're going to look a little bit into how else we can do that. Now the first thing is, and I was talking about this before in my shorter videos, 6-dotting mods is just critical to success. And for the most part, you only really want to be 6-dotting mods that are 14 or higher, 3 rolls on speed with good speed. You can roll 5 speed 3 times 15 speed, and then 6-dot that's a good mod. But you also want to be doing primaries, because guys, let me just show you. For example, I'm going to show you guys that I have some defense mods that I've 6-dotted. Now these mods are very, very fast. As you can see, I have this one, 27 speed on Hoda. Defense primary is kind of useless, but the speed is very nice. We have this one, which is obviously always defense. And you can see that sometimes you do have these occasional mods where you have a bad primary but good speed, and these aren't too bad to 6-dot. This one guy's just like 21 speed when I 6-dotted it, so it wasn't too bad. But for the most part, you're going to actually want to prioritize early on those primary stats. So primary stats of high value when 6-dotting include crit damage, health, potency, tenacity, and offense. These are going to be the best ones you can 6-dot because the stat increases are huge. For example, a 6-dot on offense primary is 8.5 offense. Normally, guys, if I was to show you one of those mods as MK5, you can see that it's only 5.8 offense. So you're gaining 3% offense by 6-dotting, which is a massive, massive increase. Again, we can take a look at the health increases, and you guys can see that if we look at health is 16%, and again, this is a massive, massive increase. So if you have someone like Grievous, someone like C, and you don't necessarily have those 15, 16, 17 speed mods, don't be afraid to 6-dot a little bit slower, maybe 12 or 13 speed, if it ensures that you get these health primaries, because these do make a massive difference. If you add on 4 6-dot health primaries, you can almost double your character's health in some circumstances. So for certain tanks, this is huge, and it's kind of a cost-effective way of doing so. Yes, I know 6-dots are expensive, but just remember, guys, eventually every pilot should have 6-dot mods. Now, I don't have this, I should do, but I don't yet. So by 6-dotting these average or below average mods, you can get to the point where you can trickle them down, and then eventually, you know, TIE Pilot or Sith Assassin, you know, those characters you're not using too much, all of a sudden they have 6-dot mods. They may not be the best mods, but while you're early game, while you're trying to fix your mods, don't be afraid to 6-dot for primary stats. Mods I would advise to kind of avoid 6-dotting unless they have very good speed include diamonds, because they're defense only, and also include protection primaries. The protection primaries don't necessarily need to be 6-dotted. As you can see here, this one was worth the 6-dot because it ended up rolling 26. These ones are all health, and guys, you can see that sometimes you get to the point where you have some protection primaries. Let me show you my 5-dot mods here, and for example, this one would be good to slice. This one I wouldn't slice. The secondaries aren't the best, but if you want quick fix, it's still not worth it because defense isn't the best to slice there. And ones like this, protection. So whilst this isn't a terrible mod, you know, 3% stats and decent speed, I wouldn't 6-dot this because you only get a 0.5% increase on protection. So whilst this is a mod you may slice later game, when your mods are starting to look better, don't prioritize it early on. I would say just ignore defense and protection unless they have incredibly good speed or incredibly good secondary stats. So now we've kind of gone over how to 6-dot mods, which ones to 6-dot, and we've also covered the speed and the mod priority for your account. The next thing I kind of want to talk about is sets. Now, I see a lot of people, and this seems really basic to a lot of you, I'm sure, but there are people out there, I see it in roster reviews, I see it all the time. I even saw it in today's stream I did with Nooch, where we saw some accounts where the mods weren't quite on par with where they should be. And one thing is mod sets. So there is a general rule which you should apply. If a character only needs speed, for example Mara Jade, for example Moff Gideon, then you do not need a full mod set. As you can see here, I've actually got a health cross on Moff Gideon, and I have a triangle on Moff Gideon. Now, Moff Gideon only needs speed. He does need his 6-dot, but hey, that's what it is. So he only needs speed. So there is no reason why you should prioritize giving him a good set as a secondary when you could do what I did and just mix and match. I gave him one of my better remaining crosses, and then I gave him my best or second best speed defense primary crit chance. No one's going to use that mod. But Moff Gideon also doesn't need crit chance, so whilst it may not be the best long term, as a short term fix you can pick these characters, and this gives you that avenue to use those mods which you wouldn't have used otherwise. So this is the first thing. Now, if a character isn't just needed for speed, so for example Bush Leia, she needs to be very fast, but she also needs that mod set, then this is when you come back and you say, okay, let's try and work out a way to really make them work with the mods we have. So for example, I've gone for 2 potency sets and a health set, and as you can see, she is very fast. This is 330 without a speed set, and this is very good. And this is an example of a character who you really need to focus in on. So you've got 2 sets of characters here. You've got the first, which only needs speed, so you don't worry about the set, and then you've got the others where they need a lot of speed, but they also need certain sets, potency sets, speed sets. But what you can do here, guys, is don't just follow the routine mod sets you see people use. That you may see it in streams, you may see it in videos, you may Google it, and it says you have to use this mod set. Don't always trust that, because sometimes you may have just an abundance of good defense mods. For example, I have an abundance of good defense mods. As you can see here on Mara Jade, potency is the best secondary set on her, but I have this 23 speed hanging around, I have this 19 speed hanging around, and there was nowhere for me to use them. And rather than put them on a lower end character, you can put them on these other characters so you can keep the set bonuses. Now, there are other characters, and these ones, for example, we'll use Jedi Knight Luke. they need a high amount of offense, and this is where we go back to the 6 dotting of mods. So for example, just here we're gaining 6% just on these 2 mods, and as you see guys, I didn't even bother 6 dotting this protection because there's no point doing so. Now say this mod had have had 1, 2 or 3% in or sorry 1% should I say, the 2 and 3 will come later, but say they had 1% offense increase on the secondary stat, that then would have been worth a 6 dot, because that would have gone to 4 or 5% after 6 dotting. So there are some rare examples where it doesn't matter too much, but for example, this is my Jedi Knight Luke. I don't need to worry about this mod. This mod will not be 6 dotted for a long time because there's just no reason to do so. The secondaries aren't the best, and protection primary isn't needed for those 6 dots. Whereas guys, you can see that I've actually been 6 dotting these ones because offense and crit damage are high value 6 dots. So now we've kind of gone over whether you should prioritize a speed set, whether you should prioritize just a mix set. We've also covered the basics of modding here. So now let's go over a little bit of farming mods, because I know some of you don't really know how to do so. So let's go back to Jedi Knight Luke just to open up the mod menu. And I think my mod filters are at, like, my mods are actually maxed out at the moment. If I go to manage mods, you guys are going to see I'm more or less maxed. So as a general rule of thumb, and I was someone who had a really bad mod roster before, my mods have just improved. I recently hit a 3.0 mod score, which for me is actually a huge achievement. I know some of you probably have way more, but my mod scores almost quadrupled in the space of 2 years. Like, I didn't really bother about them in the past, and now I've been working really hard every day, and the mods are finally coming to the surface. So let's just go through. So what I like to do is I like to have a decent amount of filters on the side. As you guys can see here, we have some filters for speed, we have filters for 4 dots. These aren't too much anymore, or needed too much anymore. We've got bad primaries. Now these are mods that if they're gold or purple, I'll level them up, and that's how we end up with that 27 Hoda mod, because I just level up and have a look. But for the most part, those mods are going to be going straight in the bin. We then have the reveal, but this is the most optimal way to do it, the quickest way to do it. You can go into this and you can level up all of these, reveal all the stats. But guys, if I showed you this and we just click on select all, upgrade, we're going to see it's 18 million credits. I don't have 18 million credits, so there is another way around this, and I like to do it a bit manually just because I like to look at what I'm doing as I go along. So what I like to do is I like to reset the default. I like to come down and I change this one here, guys, to say equal to 1. When this is equal to 1, I can then see all the mods I've got that are level 1, and you can see we have quite a lot of grey mods. Now there's 2 ways to do this. If you want to be extremely optimal, you want to be leveling up all these grey mods, because it essentially gives you an extra chance to roll speed, because you take it to level 12, you take it to level 15, and then you have 4 slices, right? If I show you guys here, let's just take this one to level 15 just for argument's sake. Don't take them straight to 15, but I'm just doing it for the purpose of the video. You can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 slices here. We then have the 6 dot, which is +1 on every stat, and then we have an additional 4 slices, so you get 8 this way. If you start from anywhere else, you basically lose 1. So it's always best to start with grey mods if you can, but they are very expensive. So there is something you can do here. If you are in a rush, or if you don't have many credits, I would recommend that you just go ahead and all the E mods that you have that are squares, squares, diamonds and circles, you can actually remove. You can just sell them. These are very common mods, especially squares and diamonds. You're going to get so many of them. Typically they're going to be your fastest mods anyway, so you can get rid of these without too much hassle. The other thing here is, in terms of primary stats, there's only really one primary stat on these mods. Defense is always on diamonds, offense is always on squares, and then circles are always protection or health. Now there are some rare circumstances where I'd keep, for example, health circles on health sets, but other than that I wouldn't worry too much. Now the ones you always want to be looking at are these 3. These are the rarer mods. I did a test a while ago where I took account of all my mods doing 8 refreshes a day, and what I found is you only get like 1% of the mods you get are speed arrows, and less than 1% of the mods are crit damage or offense triangles. So overall you want to be saving these mods. So you can go through and these are the ones you always want to be looking at. And typically what you want to do is you want to level up a mod and you want to reveal the stats. So it's level 9 for green, and as we can see here guys, this mod is pretty garbage, so we just set it straight away. This takes a bit longer, you can just reveal stats, but this is the way I like to do it just because I like doing it and seeing as I go along. It takes a bit longer, but you do what you need to do. So now you guys know how to farm the mods, and now you know what ones to upgrade, and now you know how you should balance your mod roster. There's one more thing guys that I want to cover in today's video, and that is going to be how can you actually identify what mod sets should go on what characters. Because remember guys, mods are a really detailed thing and it's very confusing, right? So the first thing I'd recommend guys is that you go online and you look up swgoh.gg, and on there you can see the best mod sets for each character. Now like I said earlier, you don't have to follow it word for word and you don't have to follow it like a book. You can change, you can adapt, and just remember it's only the average for the majority of players. If you're going to be looking at the top people in the very top of Kaiba, it may be slightly different because the meta changes a lot more quickly up there. It's a lot more fluid, so the mods also change as well. It is common knowledge guys that in the top end of the game, if you are in that position, you're probably going to be remodding a lot more than someone in Bronzium or someone in Chromium, because you need to keep up with the meta as it goes along, and mods do affect that. For example, we'll take the example of Resistance. Before you would have modded Resistance for high protection on Finn, but now you'll mod him for high health because Zori gets protection up, and protection up is based on max health. So this is a pretty new thing, so you always need to keep on top of these things. But guys, I hope this was somewhat helped. I know that a lot of you do struggle with modding, and if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. My name is Glurmit, and as always, I hope you all have a glurming day.